All right, welcome back to the Fruit Snacks podcast. This is your host, Emily Wardrop from Drop the Word Life Coaching. Are you missing my intro and outro? I sure am. In fact, maybe I got it to work on this episode. Who knows? It's a new adventure every time. Okay, so today we're going to talk about advice for a crazy grandma. I thought maybe I should call the episode that. Really, it's about hope. So I'm going to call it Hope. Maybe I'll call it Hope, advice for a crazy grandma. So I got a message from my neighbor the other day, uh, yesterday, literally yesterday, that said that her granddaughter just got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And she said, seeing how well you deal with it, I would love advice. I don't want to be a crazy grandma. Any advice? So this is advice for trying to not be the crazy grandma. Actually, she's not a crazy grandma. So this is not advice for the crazies. This is advice to keep you from going crazy, right? Really, it's advice for everyone. So as I was thinking, what advice can I give her? I did not message her back. I just went right over to her house and we had a nice little chat. But uh let's see. Basically, the message I wanted to give her is a message of hope. So that's what we're talking about today is hope. So last episode we talked about how peace, right? Because that's what Drop the War Life Coaching is all about, is finding peace in your parenting. Drop the war for peace, right? So peace is an overarching state of being. And then we delved more into joy, how joy is an overarching state of being. So, and the reason why I describe it that way is because I usually use a cognitive model where emotions come from our thoughts, drive our actions, and create our results, right? So if you look at what are you talking about? Peace or joy or hope as an emotion, then it comes from our thoughts. And therefore we have control over it. That's why we like the model because we want control, right? Which we talked about a couple of weeks ago also. And so in order to control even our emotions, which feels like the thing that's probably the most out of control in your life, well, besides this diagnosis, um, in order to control our emotions, all we have to do is control our thoughts, right? And so we like that. But sometimes we have feelings that are just everywhere. We have thoughts that are everywhere. It's really hard to keep these things in control, right? And so amidst all of that, we can still have like the overarching peaceful state of being, not necessarily like an emotion that is totally fleeting, lasts 90 seconds. The brain scientists, body scientists, whatever, neuro um nervous system scientists, they all have got it kind of figured out that a human emotion lasts 90 seconds. After a thought is thought in the brain, then a vibration is released into the body and it lasts 90 seconds on that same thought. If you think another one, then another one's released and all the things. But piling on, um, exponential, all the things. But like peace and joy and hope and love, these can be like overarching state of beings, not just a fleeting emotion. That's my whole point. So hope, let's delve into hope today. So basically when you're going through something hard, like at diagnosis or I don't know, every day of having a T1D kid, it's hard. And when you're going through something hard, you just want someone to witness the hard, right? You want to be seen. You want to not feel like crazy grandma, right? You want to know that you're not crazy. It's okay that you're thinking, feeling all the things, right? And so you want someone to witness it and you want them to tell you it's going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Your kid's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. That is hope. That's what we want. We want someone to tell us it's going to be okay. So that's what I'm here to do, to give you that hope, to tell you it's going to be okay. So that's what I wanted to tell her. So basically, the message is, yeah, at diagnosis, it's crazy, it's overwhelming, it's huge, it's big, it's new, it's scary, it's all the things. And the hope is that it gets better, right? And so you go on these T1D mom support group, Facebook groups, whatever, and the new moms are like, or some people, okay, so like some of the comments are like, I don't want anybody to tell me it's gonna get better. I just want, and so, because really that's what we tell each other, because that's what we want to hear, because that's what we need to hear. And that's true. And sometimes that's not what we want to hear. We just want someone to witness the hard. It's like, yeah, it really is hard in the hard. time. And there's hope that it'll get better, but guess what else? It's going to continue to be hard because this is not the kind of thing where, oh, it's only hard to diagnose this. You get it figured out and then you do adjust to a new normal, but then your kid gains a little bit of weight and all of the groove that you were in gets thrown off. Beware the groove, right? And so then you kind of get it under control again, and then hormones and puberty and teenagehood, it throws it all off and all the things that I haven't experienced yet, but I hear. So talking to moms who have are a couple of steps ahead of you on your journey can be hopeful because they can tell you, yeah, you get into a groove and things are not, as on fire as they feel right now. But then you talk to someone who's like a little even further ahead, aka in the teenage years, and they're like, oh, my kid is a blah 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 blah, right? And they start going on about the hard that they're experiencing because it's never not going to have some sort of hard. Like life is not going to have some sort of hard because that is the whole point. So the hope for me comes from the meaning making that I do, which I talk about all the time. So it's not, I mean, like if there was the purposelessness is what makes it so frustrating. So I just make up purpose. I choose to believe that our lives have purpose beyond this life and that we're here to be, to grow and strengthen. And when we're just coasting a little too sitting pretty, then we're not really learning anything or growing or developing, right? And so in the middle of the hard, you don't want to hear that. You just want witness that it's hard. And so I'm here to do that for you. Yes, it is hard. And then when you're ready for some meaning making to try to take off a little bit of the hard, because finding purpose in the struggle helps the struggle in my experience. Anyway, okay. So here's the thing. The worst that could happen is an emotion. This is something we like to say as life coaches. Like, what's the worst case scenario? And what would be so bad about that? It's an emotion. If we do this exercise. So, what are you worried about right now? What would be the worst case scenario? Like, answer these questions. And then, what would be so bad about that? And what you'll find is an emotion. So, what we're so freaked out about is an emotion. So, I mean, worst case scenario, right? Obviously, when your kid has diabetes, the worst case scenario is that they die, right? And obviously, what would be so bad about that? It's just an emotion. Feels like taking it lightly that your kid is dead. Like that is the real deal. Like that is the worst case scenario. That is terrible, right? That is the opposite of hope. That is like whatever the opposite of hope is, right? To say that that's a possible outcome, hope is telling you everything's going to be okay, as in your child is not going to die and you're not going to die and everything's fine. Because our brains are literally wired to keep us alive. Therefore, their whole entire purpose is, to keep that from happening. And therefore, that literally is the worst case scenario. And that's the worst thing we could ever think of, right? But what is so terrible about it is the emotions that we feel. So here's the thing that I want to tell you about that is that you're feeling them now. You feel terrible now, thinking that that could happen someday, right? So you live in an overarching state of being of worry and stress and sadness and right? Like all these terrible emotions that feel terrible. You feel terrible now when your kid is right here. Everything is fine. Everything's under control. So this is what we really need to get wrapped around our heads is that the worst case scenario, what makes it so bad is how you feel. And you feel bad right now because you're focused on the worst case scenario. So if we focus on, and you made it up, like if you're worried about your kid dying, like your kid is alive. So you're you're making it up either way. It's delusional either way, we like to say. So um if you feel terrible because you're thinking your kid might die of diabetes, then why don't you just imagine your kid's going to be great? She's going to do fine. Everything's going to be great. And then you don't have to feel terrible now. And it's made up either way. Like we don't know. And so you might as well make up a happy future that helps you feel happy now, right? So that is hope. That hope is that everything's going to be okay. And you might as well bring some light into your life, hoping that, right? So faith, hope, charity, love, it all comes from Jesus, right? That overarching state of peace and joy that comes from Christ, hope in Christ, because literally it is going to be okay. Because the worst case scenario, he conquered it. So yeah, we are going to die. Like our bodies are made to be so afraid of that, but he's conquered it, the worst case scenario. And so all we have to do is have hope in him that even if it's okay. So when I say hope is that you're going to be okay, your kid's going to be okay, everything's going to be okay. If you make that mean that they're not going to die, then you're going to be less okay if they do die. But we know that even after people pass away, they are going to live again. And that's the hope in Christ, right? He conquered death. We're all going to live again. These mortal bodies, this T1D, it's going to be gone someday. We're all going to have perfect, exalted, glorified bodies. But this life is the time to learn what we need to learn from these imperfect bodies. And someday it is all going to be okay. So it's not just a made up hope in this life, to like help us feel happy now, to like make it through this life, but literally there's like eternal hope that it is okay. So any of the thoughts that are helpful, like if you need a shortest lens hope that, yeah, it is hard. If you just need, validated that it's hard right now, there's that. If you need purpose making in the hard, there's that. If you need eternal perspective to help with the hope, there's that. There's hope at all lens lengths, right? Okay, so if there's not hope that the for the sea in the future because phases change and um phases, I don't know what that says in my notes, but you know, you'll just hear about somebody else's hard and they'll be like, oh, great, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. It's just always hard, right? So if that's not hopeful, because the sea is not going to change, they're going to have diabetes forever, and the sea is always going to be there. So there's no hope that that's going away. Then there is hope that at least your experience of it can change. And that is the hope that I want to give you, because that is the power you do have. You literally have power over your thoughts, which change your feelings. And if the worst thing that could happen is a feeling, then the best news I have is that you can control your feelings, right? And so that is the fun and exciting and amazing work of coaching, because the hope is that your experience, your results can change. Okay. You can be okay in your own bodies, right? The mental and emotional and spiritual help is there. That's hopeful, right? So it's hard now, it gets easier. That's hope, right? But there's new challenges, which sounds depressing, but they'll get easier. So that sounds hopeful. And then you'll have something else that's hard. That sounds depressing, but they'll get easier. That sounds hopeful. See the roller coaster that you're on. So you get off the roller coaster. We have so many roller coasters we need to not get on. C1D moms. You get off it by just knowing that it's all okay. The downs, the ups, the whole thing, it's okay, you know? When my first son was born, he was in special care at the hospital for a week, and I was so glad that his pediatrician told us like really early on, like the first day, he's like, "Don't ride the roller coaster. There'll be good days, there'll be bad days. Just don't ride the roller coaster." Meaning, don't pour all your emotions into, the quote unquote good or bad day, right? So if we pour all our emotions into that roller coaster that we're watching on the Dexcom, if the blood is too high, then we're freaking out. If the blood is too low, then we're freaking out. Like that is an exhausting roller coaster. We have to stay in hope that up, down, all around, whatever, it's all part of the journey and it's all good. And everything's going to be okay. Right. Okay. So let's see if I got all these notes. I don't even know what they say. So who knows? All right. How's that for advice for a crazy grandma? The advice is everything's going to be okay. Right. That's all anybody wants to hear. And then when you're ready to change your thoughts, change your life, right? I have a video, free video called Top 3 Brain Hacks, and there's really way more than three in there. But it's basically helpful thoughts that I found to be helpful. Of course, thoughts are like clothes, you know, not everybody likes the same kind of clothes or looks good in the same kind of clothes. So you got to try the thoughts on, see if it's helpful right now, if it's useful. If not, feel free to discard. If it helped me, it doesn't have to be the thing that helps you. But um, anyway, dropthewar.com/top three for the top 3 brain hacks in case my outro isn't working. But if it is today, that would be fun. And you can hear it twice. Anyway, so the first advice I would give is just that there is hope. And then after that, I got all sorts of brain hacks to help you out. So check that out. And I'll see you back here next week. Thanks. Bye.